What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt here on InsideCarolina.com. I am prepared to have a great show tonight. Sherelle and Sean are going to be here. But most importantly, I get to tell you about what's happening at Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. They're going to start having all of the spring stuff in very soon. I know it's hard to think about warm weather when it's cold outside. I get that. Trust me, I get it. But it's not going to be cold forever. At some point, you're going to be back out at the park. You're going to be back, in the gym, doing whatever you do with shorts on and short sleeve gear and Johnny T-shirts to stop where you can get your UNC gear. JohnnyT-shirt.com right there on East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. It's time to start thinking about spring games, spring sports, all of that stuff. Johnny T-shirt will have the best selection from the best brands, and we appreciate them sponsoring this content. Check them out. Premium subscribers get that extra 10% off the top. Shout out to Johnny T-shirt for sponsoring the show. And here we go. All right. InsideCarolina.com brings you the Coast to Coast podcast. I am Joey Powell, your host. And with me, as always, the two guys that you came to see, top billing. The bright lights shine brightest when these two guys step behind the microphone. They are the DJ Easy Rock and Rob Bass to my dude that hypes up DJ Easy Rock and Rob Bass. Sean Moran and Sherelle McMillan. Sean, how are you?
Doing well.
Real, how are you, man?
I'm good. Watched a really good AFC Championship game. Ready to talk about UNC.
See, we all knew football ended last week, so I don't know what you're referencing, but I can
It ended 2 weeks.
appreciate that.
It ended 2 weeks ago for me.
This is also acceptable. Guys, when we left the show last week, I can remember sitting here saying to you, all right, the Tar Heels have 3 games this week. We'll know a lot more maybe after this week. So what did we miss? Well, the Tar Heels went 3 for 3. They got 3 wins at home, kept their perfect record at home. They toughed out a game against a Virginia Tech team that I think just did not play very well. They had and actually outdid themselves with the worst shooting performance in a win in North Carolina basketball history, which if you think about the fact that North Carolina has been playing since the Mesozoic era, that is a long time. So to do anything in North Carolina basketball history is a big deal. And the Tar Heels beat Boston College despite shooting under 30% from the field. I think they made as many free throws as they did field goals for the game with 10. And then Saturday, this team shows up like their hair's on fire. I mean, hotter than a popcorn fart, just couldn't miss. Everything that they shot seemingly went into the basket and absolutely blitzed an NC State team. If you can think about a game being a 20-point win and the score being actually not as indicative as the game was lopsided, that's what happened on Roy Williams Day in the Smith Center on Saturday. Guys, I want to come to each one of you for your initial reaction on the week that was. 3 games, 3 wins. What's different? Sherelle?
They have 3 more wins than they did last week. I don't know if we know more about them. And again, I feel like we're going to say this the whole season. You're just not sure that you can trust them to go on the road and beat, a halfway decent team. Now, whether or not Louisville is a halfway decent team, I think we can discuss further. They gave Duke a pretty tough run on Saturday. But for North Carolina, we did see them win a game when they didn't shoot the ball well, which I think was important. I mean, you couldn't have played offense worse than they did against Boston College.
It would have been hard.
Yeah, it would have been hard. And I don't think Hubert's EET, energy, effort, and toughness, and I don't think those were in question at all this week. No. I thought you saw a lot of that from Caleb Love on down. So that was a good sign. They didn't have to coach effort. They didn't have to get them to play hard. They didn't look sleepy at all. So that's a positive, I guess. I guess that is some growth, but that hasn't been an issue at all at home. It's been an issue in neutral sites and on the road. So I guess you could say they confirmed that they're a decent team at home, that they can play well at home and beat teams by, up 35, beat them by 20, or they can play terribly at home and still find a way to win. So that's a good thing. However, the question marks on this team, I think, still remain moving forward, though this was a good week for them, just considering where they were, 7-8 days ago, coming off those horrible back-to-back losses.
Yeah, I think the tone around the team is definitely better. But again, to your point, their identity still is what it was a week ago at this time. Put a pause in what you said about performing at home. I want to come back to that in a second. Sean, 15-6, 10 games left. What are your takeaways from this past week? If I ask you to give me your immediate gut reaction, what is it?
Immediate gut reaction. Well, I mean, one, just going back to last week, was kind of the lowest of lows from the play on the floor to us doing the podcast. And I remember saying, well, what if they do go 3-0 this week? We probably expect them to drop one, but what if they do? And they did it. So kind of immediate reaction was they took care of business. They won ugly. They had a fantastic shooting performance and game against NC State. But at the end of the day, when you look at the rankings, I think 39 and then two teams in the 100. So, you're not back, up at the mountaintop in terms of how this team is. Their KenPom went from rank, 43rd to 37. I think that's still indicative of where they are. But I think we also saw a lot of, positives that if they can continue, maybe this can improve their overall play, just not at home. I think Brady Manick played extremely well. Obviously, Virginia Tech tried to go right at him from the opening tip, and he held his own, which was a plus, and he played well offensively. Shot 10 of 19 from 3 over the week. And Leaky Black, who we talked about, the stat of the week, is 10 offensive rating. He turned into kind of the Leaky Black that everybody was hoping for, where he is impacting the game in certain areas and is not just kind of running up and down the court. So overall, is a fantastic week, but once again, the tenor could quickly change with a game on the road and then the Duke game, and really the next 2 weeks are going to be, as we said, the last few, very important.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about the ideal line for Leaky being 5, 5, and 5. We've shared that on this podcast many times. And against NC State, he had 5, 4, and 4. It doesn't include a couple of blocks he had early on, and really asserted himself against both Darian Sebron and Jericho Helms, though Helms was lighting Brady Manick up. Sean, I want to ask you this, and Sherelle touched on it a little bit, but defensively, I'm not sure that this team is any better collectively defensively, but I do think they have shown better energy in these last couple of games. And I do think individually, to your point about Brady Manick, they've shown as individuals, they've been able to play a little bit better defense. But I still wonder, what are they going to do when they go up against teams that have decided, especially when the teams have the athletes to just take the ball to the basket. And there's one of those coming up next weekend in Chapel Hill. What can this team do defensively to stop just the straight line dribble drives that they've had trouble with?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the guard perspective, Sherelle mentioned kind of the energy, effort, and toughness, and that was, I think, one thing throughout the week from Caleb Love, where you really saw that on defense, even offense to defense. He was always exerting a ton of energy. Was trying to get through picks, was focused, and I think if he can keep that up, that's one piece of the puzzle on the perimeter. Defensively, Armando had, I think, 6 blocks against NC State. Would love to, if he was kind of that Day'Ron Sharp enforcer in the middle against everybody, but I don't think that is the case. We've talked about the lack of kind of a rim presence. I think NC State helped it by really their guards and wings driving in, and kind of giving him opportunities. But even if he was able to improve slightly, I think that would go a long way. But really, it's just going to come from them. The communication, I think, is extremely important. It has seemed like the players have been communicating better on the floor, and even offensively, that they're recognizing each other more on assists and good shots and things of that nature. So I'd say really communication is probably the one key, when you're going against better teams or playing on the road.
Yeah, thanks for that. Sherelle, I want to ask you, we'll find out again, the Tar Heels will have another chance to get a win on the road when they go at Louisville, which I think is a quad 2 game coming up this week on Tuesday. Why do you think this team's results don't travel?
I mean, that's $1 million question. I honestly, I don't have an answer. I mean, maybe because they're playing the better teams on the road. I mean, Notre Dame has turned out to be a pretty solid team. Miami, we know, is arguably the best team in the ACC. Wake Forest, I think, is a tournament team. So those are the 3 ACC road losses. And then on the neutral site, Purdue, Tennessee, and Kentucky all are top, I think, 16 in KenPom. So it's not like they're losing to bad teams. Again, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is that they're getting blown out.
They're playing poorly. Yes.
Right. They're playing poorly. I guess it's just that extra little bit of energy these guys didn't have, with everyone, didn't have real home games last season. So maybe just being in that environment and thriving in that environment, comfort level, just easier, your spots better. It's where you always play. It could be any of those things, but I don't have a great answer. It's very similar to the football team about night games and night road games,
Hold on. I need to go get some Maalox.
It doesn't
go ahead,
make any
sorry.
It doesn't make any sense. And everyone, I was, even with UNC up 35, I was like, I remember November. I remember what happened.
Oh God.
So that was I think in the back of a lot of people's mind, and maybe that was a little catharsis on Saturday to make up for that game in Raleigh in November. But to answer your question, man, I don't know. It's baffling. They are really good with the EET, the energy, effort, and toughness at home, and maybe that is just the difference.
Yeah, I would wonder if they're able to have a decent performance against Louisville, if that might, like a shooter when he sees the ball go in the basket, if that might help them kind of get off the snide a little bit and recognize that, hey, we can do this. Sean, I want to ask you some analysis specifically from Saturday. If you had to give a star rating to the Bird, the Carolina Wren that ended up on the court, what would you say that the Bird's game was worth? No, I'm kidding. For those of you who didn't see the game, there was actually a Bird in the Smith Center that landed on the court and they stopped the game. But Sean, I do want to come back to you. A guy like Darian Sebron, who is, does really good with the ball in his hands, is a volume shooter, can get to the rim seemingly whenever he wants. North Carolina kind of limited him on Saturday. And I'm not making this an NC State, sole analysis podcast, but what do you think was different that North Carolina did? Because, they still allowed a guy like Jericho Willems and Terquavian Smith to go nuts. But Darian Sebron, who I guarantee you was number one on just about everybody's scouting reports, did not have such a good game. And I don't think it was just shooting. Do you think that Tar Heels played him differently? Do you think it was Leaky Black just had more intensity because it was a rival? Any ideas as to why that came to pass?
Yeah, I think Sherrill actually tweeted it beforehand of one of the keys is just to slow him down, not even stop him. But surprisingly, they did. Look at the numbers, 1 for 6, and they're obviously focused on him initially. I think, once again, he's been a tremendous talent this year, has kind of the size and length and, is athletic. But, you look back at Alondis Williams, and that dude is more of a freak where quickness-wise, jumping, strength, like he's just going to, he was in kind of a different ball game. Seaborn, is a good one, but he wasn't going to, I don't think, overwhelm anybody athletically. And I think that allowed Leaky to kind of stay with him a little bit more. Once again, Armando was, kind of acting the enforcer in the paint. And offensively, when you're hitting every single three that you take, that obviously deflates, can deflate you a little bit on both ends. So, I think it athletically, once again, it wasn't a Miami guard or a Alondis at that level where that's where UNC's had trouble. But it was a guy that, even though he'd been playing really well, has the length and skill. I think they're Leaky and the defensive style could disrupt him a little bit easier than some of the other players that have had success.
Sherrill.
Yeah, I was going to say too, he's not really a shooter. And when there's not a threat of, someone just, dropping 4 or 5 threes on you, he's made 8 the whole season. And you can be more aggressive with your on-ball defense. And you can, Leaky has the length to really bother people. So really it was a matter of Leaky, not respecting his outside shot at all. And then kind of covering his right hand and making sure that, if he's going to drive, he's going to drive right. So if you do that, it makes it a little bit easier to cut him off from angles, to have help defense rotate over, because he's not a threat from the outside. So I think that probably helps them too.
It did look like UNC did a better job of protecting the rim and forcing NC State's dribble drives to the outside. Sherrill, I want to ask you this, and Sean, I'm going to get you to chime in on it too. We saw some differences in the rotation this week, and I don't want this to sound as a knock on any player because I definitely think that Anthony Harris and Dawson Garcia make UNC better. But by those two players being unavailable this week, did they actually help Hubert Davis with his rotation issues? Because I would say the team that he played and the way that he played and distributed minutes on Saturday could actually bode really well for this team later in the season. Trill, how do you feel like that? Is that potential that they could have addition by subtraction with ease of the rotation, or did it just happen because of the way the game turned out Saturday?
Probably a little bit of both. I don't want to say addition by subtraction, but I do think that Brady Manick is a little more comfortable playing with Armando Bacot than Dawson Garcia was.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, again, not a knock on Garcia.
Sure.
Because certainly, he's had some huge gains for UNC. And at some point they could really use, the scoring ability that he has.
Yeah.
But I think Manick is excellent at, as we've talked about pretty much every podcast, at moving the ball, at not letting it stick, at getting it to Armando Bacot from the high post. And the good thing is that he's such a willing passer, is that people actually, it looked to me at least, like NC State started playing him as a passer as a little bit. And that is dangerous because if you give him, a little bit of room, he's gonna hit a three. So I think that's part of it. And then, with Puff Johnson seemingly passing other players on the rotation, now you have Kerwin Walton coming in as opposed to Anthony Harris as kind of the third guard, I guess. And so that gives you a little more offensive versatility with Walton. And then with Johnson, I think it gives you a lot more defensive versatility in that he can guard threes and he's willing to go down there and fight with, fours from the opposing team as well. So it looked good for these 3 games. It's still essentially a 7-man rotation. You just replaced you replaced Harris and Garcia with Walton and Johnson essentially. And I think those guys have different skill sets. So I'm sure there's something we're missing that Garcia and Harris did that Walton and Johnson don't. But right now we're not seeing it. So it's kind of I guess it's a status quo to me, just because those two do different things than the two that they're replacing.
Noted. Sean, do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, again, I'm the host. I'm always the guy that's going to try to oversimplify things and allow you guys to extrapolate. But how do you feel like things have shaped out this week or have shaken out this week with the rotation differences?
Yeah, I mean, even in the games, the rotations have been different, but I think, hopefully a positive going forward with Puff healthy and starting to get some playing time, as well as, a little more comfortable on both sides of the ball. And even Kerwin, if he can come in and feel confident on, 1 to 3 3-point attempts, I think that goes a long way. In general, I always feel kind of, an 8-man rotation is the ideal scenario. I mean, you can go back to 05 or 09, et cetera, where they kind of had, the starters had defined roles, but you still had some strong bench play. And, when you look at Garcia, obviously a very talented player, but I think this, in terms of the losing him, it helps Manick. I think it gives Manick more comfort in terms of more minutes, more shot attempts. And there's probably going to be a game where foul trouble or what else, it's going to say, wow, we really wish we had Dawson to come off the bench. But right now, I think it gives Manick more freedom. And, he's a guy where every time he shoots, I expect it to go in, just in terms of how he's playing. From Harris, I did like his athleticism and what he brought on that end. But once again, there have been so many guys where, they have potential, but it was just hard to give them the minutes or shot attempts. So now, the guys for the most part are locked in. Maybe DeMarco Dunn gets some minutes here and there, but for the most part, it kind of just shrinks it and gives those guys a little more opportunity and hopefully a little more confidence to play well when they're in.
If nothing else, it's been refreshing to see, especially on Saturday. Kerwin Walton only had 5 points, but he took 2 jump shots that he missed that he looked confident taking. There was no hesitation. He caught the ball. He got it in good. He was in good rhythm when he took them. And then Puff Johnson actually hit a deep 3 as well. I think that bodes well for the team moving forward, especially if those, like Sherelle said, if those are going to be your 6 and 7 guys in the rotation from here on out. All right, fellas, a little statistical breakdown here. I mentioned earlier, 15-6 is what the Tar Heels are looking at right now. They're 7-3 in the ACC, which I think either has them tied for 4th, but either way, they would be in the top 4 right now if the NCAA or if the ACC tournament were to start right now. And you know that top 4 means the elusive and much needed double bye. They're 37 in the net. They've got 10 games to play. 4 of those games are quad 1 games, which we have talked ad nauseum. And anybody who follows this team has said they need to capitalize on every chance they have to get good Q1 wins to boost their resume. They also have 2 of their last 10 games are Q2 games. Looking at 10 left, I'm not asking you to predict games, but what I would like to ask is at 15-6 right now with 10 to play, what do they need to do to get into the NCAA tournament, assuming that they can't win all 10? Because I don't know, this team has not proven to me that they are trustworthy to even mention winning all 10 is a possibility. So Sherelle, I will ask you, what will they need to do down the stretch of these last 10 games to get into the NCAA tournament so that prior to whatever happens in Brooklyn, you feel good about their resume?
10-0. Shout out to Tommy Ashley. They
he said it yesterday on the radio show. He's like, 12-0 is going to be on my tombstone. I said, yes, it will. Go ahead.
No, I think they need to go 6-4. That puts them at 13-7 in the ACC. I think they would feel comfortable there. There's 5 road games, 5 home games. They got to find a way to get 2 road wins. I don't know how, because being frank and being honest, the likelihood of them going undefeated at home, I think it's tough, because their toughest game left is at home. So if they can go 5-0 at home, then, great. You only have to win 1 road game. But I would expect them to potentially drop 1 home game. So, something like 4-1 at home the rest of the way. So you got to pick up 2 road wins somewhere. It doesn't matter where, at Louisville, at Clemson. That last game of the year is going to be tough. At NC State, just got to find a way to protect your home court, win 4 out of 5 at your home court, and then find 2 road wins somewhere. And I think they'll get in. So
just to recap, and I love the way you broke that down, Sherelle. You're at Louisville, at Clemson, at Virginia Tech, at North Carolina State, and then you end the year at the Mike Krzyzewski will not die game. That's harsh to say. I shouldn't say that. The Mike Krzyzewski's, whatever you want to call it, ESPN special programming for 48 hours game on the road. So those are your 5 road games. North Carolina also on the home slate, Duke and Chapel Hill next week. Florida State at home, Pitt at home, which is a Q4, Louisville at home, which is a Q3, and Syracuse at home, which is a Q3. So most of their Q1 and Q2s, in fact, all of them are going to be on the road. Sean, same thing. What do you think this team has to do so that prior to the ACC tournament, you feel steady about their NCAA tournament resume?
With this one, it's hard to even look a few weeks out, just given the fluctuations we've seen. I agree with Sherelle in terms of the overall 6-4 record. I would say over the, once again, going back to the next 2 weeks, 2-2 worst case scenario, which puts a lot of pressure, knowing that one of the top teams in the country is coming in, and that's one of the 4. But Louisville, at Clemson, and Florida State at home, they need to go, 2-1, against those 3, I think, to set themselves up for, really Pitt being kind of the BC of the one game that they should win, especially being at home. Although with anything, you don't want to count it as a win just quite yet. But once again, I think, really that the Louisville game is going to be extremely important. It's a team that obviously is going through a lot of turmoil, and a team that if UNC jumps on early, I think they win the game. But if they let Louisville hang around, even like they, or play them even like they were awake in that first 10 minutes, it could give them the confidence they need to, get hot and pull out a win and kind of give the fans something to celebrate on. But if UNC can get them down early, I think they'll quit. But once again, it's can UNC hit them in the mouth versus just kind of playing, playing until all of a sudden the run comes, and then it's catch up time.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say too, Louisville, after something traumatic happens in the season, like you lose your head coach, you figure that you get that first game of energy and everybody's excited because you want to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
And they had that against Duke and they still lost. So I think Sean is 100% on it. If Carolina can get up, 15-2, 15-3, 15-5 early, I think Louisville might be like, what are we doing here? Our coach is fired. We gave 100% against Duke, still lost. Like, we've got 9 games left. Why Why are we doing this? Let's just get through this. So I think that is important. If UNC ever needed to come out in a game and just, put the pedal to the metal, it's Tuesday night.
And Tuesday night, again, if they don't do that, Louisville showed against Duke that they've got some dudes. They've got some guys that will absolutely body you and lean on you and get grimy with you. And that's not a style of play that North Carolina wants any part of. So that being said, I agree with what you guys said. And I appreciate the look down the road too. Again, not asking you to pick games or prognosticate or anything like that, but just I appreciate the understanding that you gave with what you think will get the Tar Heels comfortably into the NCAA tournament. And that Tuesday night game against Louisville is a Q2 game. So to reiterate, that's a real good chance to boost your resume a little bit. Boys, let's take a quick break. Let the national guys run some ads. We'll be right back to talk some recruiting. All right. Appreciate you sticking around here for the Coast to Coast podcast. Sherelle McMillan, Sean Moran, I'm Joey Powell. Appreciate you being here with us. Sherelle just sent me a message in our chat as we're doing this show live tonight while we're recording. He said Duke Keys. I don't know if that's a prospect that the Tar Heels have just offered a scholarship to or not. But Sherelle, you want to tell us about Duke Keys? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, keys to the Duke game. I didn't want to get ahead of things because this team has not shown any reason for folks to get ahead. I do want to reiterate that College Game Day will be in town on Saturday, so it should be a relatively hype atmosphere. Probably not as jacked up as they were against NC State for the Roy Williams Day and the 82 championship teams honoring ceremony, but definitely there will be some buzz around the game on Saturday. So before we get into recruiting things, Sherelle, give me 2 keys that the Tar Heels need to beat Duke on Saturday.
Duke Cruz was a recruit back in the day.
Duke Cruz, that's right. And he almost spelled it like Keys. I think it was Crews. Where did he end up going? West Virginia?
He went to
Tennessee, right?
and then
Tennessee.
transferred to VCU or Maryland, somewhere like that. Anyway,
Duke Cruz. Wow. All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, in looking at that game, man, the big question is like, what do you do with Paolo Banchero if you're UNC? Because you have to assume there's going to be a lot of Armando Bacot and Mark Williams.
I would say bracket him with a safety and a linebacker.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's to me, that's the point right there is, are you going to allow Banchero to just kind of do his thing and try to choke off everything else? Or are you just going to play him straight up and say, if Jamie Roach and Joey Baker and others are hitting their shots, tip their cap? Are you going to double him? And then if Joey Baker and Jeremy Roach, Wendell Moore, et cetera, Griffin are hitting their shots, then tip your cap and lose the game. I personally, I would go to Brady Manick before the game and say, look, we love you very much, but we're going to sacrifice you in this game because I think you allow Banchero to just do his thing. And if he scores 50 points, he scores 50 points. But the issue with a lot of these Carolina Duke games in the past is the kind of guys on the
random guy,
the cursory guys who maybe haven't shot well from 3 before, or who are in a slump, who bust that slump because they're getting open looks. And so if you don't allow them to get open looks and you say, okay, Banchero, do your thing, then I think that gives Carolina a better chance. Obviously, I'm not Hubert Davis. I'm not a coach. I'm not paid. But if I were in that position, I think that's a strategy I would take, and just see what happens from there. Obviously, you can adjust on the fly, but that's how it would start.
So what you're saying is you're expecting 35 points out of AJ Griffin.
Perhaps. I mean, he's been shooting it well, man. He was
hitting some deep balls against Louisville for sure. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Sean, strategy against Duke. I mean, again, they've got a lot of size, they've got a lot of talent. I mentioned earlier how good they are at getting the ball to the rim. How would you play this game, or what is the one thing you think North Carolina has to do or take away to win this game?
Well, I mean, I think a few interesting things. One, in terms of the matchups of is RJ. I assume RJ will guard Roach, and then everybody kind of has to go up with Caleb guarding Wendell, et cetera. So it's going to be kind of a little bit of a size issue early on. And I think, how do they handle Mark Williams when he's on defense? Because I think he helps erase a lot of Duke's issues defensively, where, on a man-to-man perspective, I think UNC could get to the rim and attack. But if they can get him in foul trouble, I think that's huge. Obviously they have Theo John, another big body off the bench. But how does Mark Williams protect the paint from the guards, as well as Armando, who has struggled against players like him. But I think from when you're looking at Paolo and Manic, if Manic can, Paolo's not a great defensive player, and he's not going to want to exert a lot of energy. So if Manic can get comfortable from behind the 3-point line, I think that that goes far. And the other thing is just pushing the tempo, again against Duke, and looking for those 3-point shooters on the wings. And then finally Caleb Love, we know he loved playing against Duke last year, and especially if Jeremy Roach is guarding him, he feels like he can do whatever he wants against him. So I'm going in with low expectations, but I think if they play well, they have the confidence from last year of dominating them 2 times.
Absolutely.
Obviously a different team, but still a lot of the same guys.
No, your point resonates. And as Sherelle was talking about what Banchero is able to do, I was also wondering is a big offensive output from Brady Manick and forcing Banchero to chase him around. Does that change things? Who knows? All right. Now that we've talked about what a prospect Duke Keys is going to be for college basketball, let's get into some actual high school basketball, some prep prospects right now. Sean, you did a great eval on Seth Trimble and how his game continues to evolve. The UNC signee, you want to kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis of that for folks who have not had a chance to see it and may want to go click on that on the InsideCarolina.com premium message boards?
Yeah, so that came out kind of midweek, a little bit after the Tyler Nickel film review. It came from his game this past about a week ago, which with the opponent having a 4-star 6'4" shooting guard in the class of 2023. So it was a good opportunity to look both offensively and defensively at Trimble, since it had been really since the beginning of the season when we did so. Offensively, he only missed five shots the whole game. He hit 2 threes, which he's been shooting the ball a lot better and a lot more comfortably, which is huge, especially if he can continue to increase that 3-point shooting ability. And was able to show his explosiveness getting to the rim. Defensively, showed some great on-ball pressure, especially when going up against, the Chapman, the 4-star. But pick and roll, sometimes he could, kind of get gobbled up pretty easily. So, that'll just be something that he needs to kind of continue to work on. But overall, it was a really efficient and a very strong performance against another talented team from Minnesota.
Yeah, so definitely want to reiterate, folks need to check that out on the InsideCarolina.com premium basketball message board. Sean does an amazing job with these, some really next level stuff. And again, it gives you a little bit of insight into what North Carolina is getting when a player like Trimble gets to campus. Sherelle, the Tar Heels had a visitor on campus yesterday. It's their only offer in the sophomore class. You want to tell us anything about Jaron Stevenson that folks might not know?
Not that they might not know. This is his 3rd trip to UNC this year. He lives in Pittsburgh and goes to the new school there, Seaforth High School. Is their first year playing basketball. So a regular visitor, someone who they've put a lot of attention to be just a sophomore. And I think he'll probably be back at the Smith Center a couple more times. So they're in a good place with him early. Who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of years, but that's the kind of talent in state that you want to see North Carolina go after, because as we've talked about, the 2024 class in particular is very fertile for UNC in their recruiting area. South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. There are probably 4 or 5, national top 25, top 30 prospects who they have a chance with. So getting them in to the Smith Center on a day like Saturday, where Michael Jordan's in the building and Raymond Felton's in the building, Antoine Jameson's in the building. You see how
PJ Hairston was in the building.
You see how I put Raymond Felton above Antoine Jameson and just below Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Yes.
So there are a lot. It's a big day on Saturday in the Smith Center. So the fact that they, Stevenson could experience that, I'm sure helps UNC a ton.
Yeah, and again, I'm always a sucker for guys that have like that prototypical NBA wing build. I mean, he's 6'8" and 190 at 16 years old. I mean, that's a pretty daunting frame that a lot of college coaches will probably salivate at the the opportunity to coach. All right, and last thing, after we did our show last week, you did a little bit of a kind of synopsis to how the GG Jackson post Duke visit went, and kind of your reporting on understanding of that. Anything else you want to share there in case folks didn't see that update?
Can we get the alarm to say it's the GG Jackson portion of the program?
Oh, yes, that's right. We should have a hey, John, in post, I need you to add in a special like breaking world report GG Jackson update sounder. All right, go ahead.
No, not much has changed. The only thing I think maybe slipped by some readers is that he was originally scheduled to visit South Carolina officially the weekend of February 16th, but his state playoffs start on the 15th. And if they win on the 15th, they would play on the 18th, which would be in the middle of the South Carolina visit. So that visit has been moved up to this coming weekend, actually. So he'll be in Columbia, which is, 10 minutes from his house, starting on Friday through Sunday for an official visit. From there, it's kind of, we don't think he's going to take another official visit, but he hasn't completely ruled it out. I think more than likely what would come after that is some kind of final top list and then a decision, as he said, early spring. So he's rounding third, I would say, in his recruitment. And once the South Carolina visit is done, I think we'll see, the home stretch, and we'll be able to see kind of the top 3 schools or maybe the top 5 schools, and then have a decision again before AAU starts in April.
And this has been your weekly GG Jackson update here on the Coast to Coast podcast. Thank you, Sherelle McMillan reporting. All right, guys, before we get out of here, anything that we missed that you want to tack on? Sean?
No, I mean, Tyler Nickel had 54 points.
Just 54?
Yeah.
Slacker.
The game after we did the eval, didn't watch the whole thing, watched a little bit of the early parts. And, as we always say, yes, the level of competition, but I mean, scoring 54 no matter what is always impressive. And, he was shooting the ball very well from the 3-point line, which I think is going to be his key to getting some playing time early, is that 3-point shooting ability next season.
Yeah, 54 points in an open gym with a rack of basketballs is not easy to do. Cheryl, anything you want to add before we get out of here tonight?
Got 3 funny stats for you, or interesting stats, or
fire away, sir.
So North Carolina is shooting 75.8% from the free throw line. That is the highest in the Kim Pom era, which dates back to 1997.
Well, clearly that just means that Hubert Davis makes them practice free throws more than Roy Williams did. That's the way I'm supposed to read that with hot take glasses, right?
I believe so. Yes, they're slightly above 75.7 in 2008.
All right.
So that's interesting because when you have big men like Armando Bacot, who's going to get fouled, when you have guards like Caleb Love and RJ Davis who penetrate and get fouled, they need to be able to convert it to the free throw line. And so far, they're doing a great job at that.
Almost makes me wish they would drive to the basket more, but that's just me talking off the top of my head. Go ahead.
Yeah. So 38.1% from 3. That is the best UNC percentage since the 2009 national championship team. That team was at 38.5. What is great and amazing about that team is that it also was top 20 in the country in offensive rebounding. So
that's so absurd.
They didn't miss a ton of shots, but if they ever did, they obviously almost always got the rebound. So hilarious. And then my favorite stat, North Carolina conference only defensive efficiency. Where do you think they are now? I'm just tracking this every week because it's hilarious to me. Where do you think
they're first? They were first last week, and then like something happened. Are they first again?
No, they were first, and they dropped to 4th after those 2, after the
Miami and Wake Forest
disasters, and now they're back up to 3rd in the conference in defensive
efficiency.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't talk about it last week, so hopefully they don't get crushed after.
Right.
Louisville's going for 90.
Louisville's going for 90.
Right?
Duke will go for 120. Yeah. All right.
That's on me. I'm sorry. That's on me.
Well, hey, look, between that and then Sean doing a video analysis of somebody and he gets 54 the next game. I mean, maybe you should start going after all of UNC's targets and doing a write up for them so they can fill up the stat sheet the very next time out. All right, fellas, as always, I'm thankful that you're here and I appreciate the perspectives and the insight that you bring to this show. Hey, everybody out there, please rate and review us. I think Spotify has some new thing where you can review. Make sure you do that. If you're checking us out on Spotify, it definitely helps if you go out and rate us. So hook us up with some good ratings That means the world for us and our advertisers. Only if you like the show, of course. If you don't like the show, first off, let us know. And then why are you listening if you don't like it? But I would assume that you like it because you're here and we like that you're here. So give us some good ratings, good reviews, all that good stuff. It really helps us out. Make sure that you are subscribing to all of our stuff, especially on YouTube. If you like looking at us every week, if you don't like looking at us every week, I'm sorry. This is what God gave me. It's gorgeous the way I am. So make sure you subscribe there and just, we're thankful that you're here. We appreciate you being a part of the show every week. We look forward to putting these together for you. And we hope that you look forward to getting them however it is that you consume Inside Carolina content. So thank you so much for being here. For Sean Moran, for Sherelle McMillan, and shout out to John Sigley for producing. I am just Joey Powell. We will catch you next time on the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com. Late.